Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to my new video where we are going to be going over everything that you need to know about Swain E in our third installment of the Masterclass series. That it's going to be going over every single ability. I have finished both the Q and the W videos, so you can check those out under the playlist section on the channel. So, with all that out of the way, let's get right into it. The first and most important thing that is going to help you increase your chance of landing more E's is understanding the range and the bloom explosion that comes out of your E when you throw it out. As you can see here, the E is not going to hit this target dummy, but if we put a target dummy right in front of it, and this can be anything that is going to cause your E to explode, so it can be a minion or it can be a clone, anything like that is going to extend the E range, and you're going to be able to hit that back target. As you can see, I pulled that back target, even though my first E was thrown from the exact same spot as my second E, it was not able to hit it. So having a good understanding of this really one-ups your knowledge on enemy players that have a good understanding of the range of Swain's E, but do not have a good understanding of how you can increase the range with minions. So this is how you can get a lot of your catches, particularly if you're struggling finding any E catches in lane, or you're playing in a higher elo. This can catch a lot of people off guard. The blooming effect of your E can be extremely powerful, and that will wrap up the first tip for Swain E. Alright, and getting into the second tip with Swain's E, this is a extremely important thing to understand, and that is when you can look to flash your Swain E's and when the best timing behind it is. So obviously an E flash does not work. I wish it did, but it just does not work like that, so you aren't able to flash your E's range any longer than it actually is going to go. So how you can look to use your flash when you are doing your Swain E is to get a more of an extreme angle on enemy targets that you might miss with your E. You can always walk and readjust the comeback of your E looking for rooting targets, but if you throw out your E and then flash, you can hit more roots on enemy targets that are unsuspecting. So the first thing that you need to understand when doing these kind of E flashes is the opportune timing. Throwing out your E and almost instantly flashing the angle is going to be an absolutely terrible way to play it out, because it's going to give the maximum amount of time for the enemy to flash out because they see you flashing. How you want to do it is to lower the amount of time they have to react to it. Is you want to wait for your E to hit pretty much the end of the going forward phase and making sure that it is getting readjusted right at the end. I always flash pretty much right at the end of the line. Right when it starts coming back is going to give you a really nice extreme angle, and it's not going to give it away. The E come back like that, it's just going to be so telegraphed if you flash too early. You always want to wait until the latest possible moment where the E is still going to hit the target, and you can get that really extreme angle that you are expending your flash for. And that will wrap up this tip. Alright, and giving you guys just a regular tip for general accuracy is going to be a pretty important thing, particularly if you're playing in the ADC or support role. This is going to be even more prevalent, but it works in any lane and in any situation. When you're chasing down an enemy and they are consistently looking to dodge out on your E, because everyone knows that that is the most important spell that's coming out, because it's going to proc your passive and it's going to enable your WQ to be guaranteed. You want to close distance. If they are just allowing you to auto attack them while they are not returning any damage and you can close distance, always look to do this. Similar to how people are going to be dodging Blitzcrank left to right, thinking that they are going to hook, but the Blitzcrank just walks straight up to them, ease and into a Q. You can apply a similar principle with Swain by closing as much distance as possible and getting extremely close to the target and making it near impossible for the enemy to dodge out on your E, because you are so close and you can just mirror the way that they are walking. If they walk to the right, you walk to the right. If they walk to the left, you walk to the left. If they walk towards you, you can walk backwards just to minimize the amount of damage that you might be taking from auto attacks. But whenever you can, particularly in a situation where you are getting a gank and you are setting it up, or that you know that you can win the 2v2, you want to close as much distance as possible. Maybe auto attacks. Sometimes people read those auto attacks as an animation coming out similar to the Swain E that's going to be coming out. So you want to close as much distance as possible, and you want to look for these kind of situations where the target is limiting themselves from certain dodge angles, and that is when they get close to walls. This is when you want to be throwing out your E's as much as possible, because they can only dodge one way. They can only dodge a little bit to the right. So how you want to play out these situations is throw the E at the target and then lead them a little bit to the right, because that's going to be the only way that they can dodge outside of walking just extremely forward and taking a whole crap ton of damage from you in an improved Q, hitting all your bolts, or your ally is just smashing them with auto attack. So having a good understanding of when to throw out your E's, when the enemy is looking to just consistently dodge back and forth, you want to close distance as much as possible, particularly when you know that you are going to win the fight. And that will wrap up this tip for Swain. All right, and getting into the next tip for Swain's E is getting a good understanding of how impactful Nevermore can be. It is a very low cooldown for a pick potential ability. So a 0 cooldown reduction, it has about a 10-second cooldown even. And when you get maybe a couple items, maybe this is a standard mid-game build, is just Leandri's, a Zhonya's Hourglass, as well as Sorcerer's Shoes, it goes down to about 7 seconds. So when you are playing against champions that can always dodge out on your E's, you do not always just want to look for different targets that might be a little bit more easy to pick with your E. This comes into mind when you're playing it maybe bot side or support, and you see an enemy champion like Ezreal. His E cooldown is a lot longer than your E cooldown, so forcing out his E with either your E or your W is going to be extremely effective. Even though it kind of feels bad to throw out your E and it's just getting dodged over and over again, similar to a Silver Spell Shield, you want to be throwing out your low cooldown pick potential ability to trade for a extremely higher cooldown ability. Also, your E is really low mana, so trading it for high mana abilities can be a very effective way to play it out, similar to something like a Fizzy if you're playing him in the mid lane and he is using his E to dodge your E, or even more impactful, something like a Vladimir W. You are going to get those cooldowns when you throw out your E's on the enemy target. So do not be afraid to throw out your root when you see even though an enemy target has a mobility spell, because you're going to be able to get your E up most of the time before they are going to get their mobility spell up. And that will wrap up this tip for Swain. All right, and getting into the next tip with Swain, and that is when you get into team fights and when you are frontlining, or maybe you are just kind of in the middle of the team fight, having a good understanding of tricking people into thinking that you are not going to E them. This is a extremely common thing that I've seen happen in every single elo that I've played in. So if you play anywhere diamond and under, this is going to work in that situation, and that is you are focusing. Maybe you're trying to burn down a frontline tank that is annoying your backline, and you are just doing a bunch of damage facing the enemy target that you are pretending to focus, and then waiting for the enemy ADC to come up and auto attack you is going to be a great way to look for team fight changing picks on enemy targets. This is going to be very, very nice because people don't have, first of all, they don't have a good understanding of what your E cooldown is, which is going to be super easy to just maybe throw your first one out on the enemy tank and start the combo and start the team fight off. But then they think that you are focusing them. They are not going to be expecting an E coming on them on this target. Obviously not like facing them. That is going to kind of throw off maybe some alarms in their head. So always looking to face the enemy target that you are feigning interest in and dealing damage on. Maybe you throw out a Q or two on them and then looking for the E on the important enemy target that is getting into your E range because they think you are focusing other targets is going to be a great way to get invaluable picks in team fights. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten things like Jinxes and Banes and Xeraths and Vel'Kozes that just kind of think they just disrespect your pick range because you're focusing other targets, and that is going to be a great way to play out team fights with your E on Swain. All right, and getting into the final tip with Swain's E. And again, if you guys have any tips that you would like to share with other people, I'd love to see your guys' thoughts down in the comments down below. I can't cover every single micro thing around the E. Maybe I forgot a thing or two, or maybe you have a special tip that I haven't thought of. I'd love to hear it down below. But getting into the final thing, and that is the optimal range to throw out an E on a target, and that is about this range, where you have a little bit of give if they just run backwards, and the E is going to go out and come in very, very quickly on the enemy target. If you are throwing out an E from about this range, they have a lot more time to kind of move right to left. So getting Similar to how Sivir Q has a sweet spot where it double hits the enemy target in a very, very quick fashion at the end of her Q range, that is the optimal range for her. It is really similar with the E, where you want it to hit both parts of the E and really just come back with the root as soon as possible on the enemy target. So throwing it at about that range from Fog can be a very, very effective way to get a lot of picks on the enemy targets. Again, it is at about, it's not at the max range, but it's about where the arrow starts on this E reticule, where you have a little bit of give. They cannot run out of it, and if they run out of it, they're just going to get hit quicker by the E2, the E comeback of it. So if you guys keep this in mind, I think you're going to land a lot more E's. That you look for enemies in this sweet spot. They are not at the absolute max range. This would be probably a pretty poor place to throw it from. But if you give it a little bit of the give when the enemy target doesn't know that you are going to throw an E out on them, about right there is going to be a perfect timing to get very unexpected and quick E's on the enemy target when they do not realize that you are throwing them from Fog. And that will wrap up my video, guys. If you have any questions for me, you can hit me up in the comments down below. And as always, take it easy.